You know that 1 in 4 young adults already believes AI girlfriends will replace real love? It sounds like science fiction, but the numbers don't lie. That's exactly how I felt when I first came across the study. At first glance, it almost feels like clickbait, like some exaggerated headline designed to grab attention. But when you dive into the research, when you look at how quickly technology has seeped into every corner of our lives, you realize it's not an exaggeration. It's a reflection of a shift already happening. And it isn't just about gadgets or apps. It's about human connection, about the most intimate parts of our lives. Romance, companionship, family. Think about it. Just a few years ago, the idea of talking to a chatbot like a friend sounded silly. Who would do that? Who would pour their feelings out to a computer program? But now, millions of people around the world send messages to AI friends every day. There's even a therapist bot on one platform that has already received nearly 100 million messages. That's not just curiosity. That's people seeking comfort, advice, or even intimacy in a space where no one judges them, no one criticizes them, and no one rejects them. And for many young adults, that feels safer than real life. Why risk heartbreak when a virtual partner will always be there, always respond, always act as if you matter? It's not surprising that so many are at least curious about what that kind of relationship could mean. Now, when you consider that 7% of single young adults are open to the idea of a romantic relationship with AI, the numbers don't sound massive. 7 out of 100, that's not everyone. But stop for a second. This phenomenon didn't even exist 5 years ago, not in this form. And already, 7% are saying yes to something most of us grew up believing was impossible. That's the seed of a cultural shift. Just like online dating once carried a stigma. Back in the early 2000s, people would lie about meeting their partner on a dating site because it sounded desperate. AI relationships may follow the same path. First, taboo. Then accepted. Then mainstream. Imagine a generation where, "How did you two meet?" becomes, "Well, I built her on an app." As strange as it sounds, the groundwork is being laid for that future right now. But let's dig deeper into why so many young people feel this way. Relationships are hard work. Anyone who has been through a breakup knows the pain that comes with rejection, betrayal, or simply falling out of love. Add to that the rising costs of living, the struggles of balancing work and personal life, and the pervasive loneliness that surveys show many young adults experience. And suddenly, an AI partner doesn't look so ridiculous. An AI girlfriend never asks you to spend money you don't have, never cancels plans last minute, never compares you to someone else, and never cheats. For some, that reliability is tempting. For others, it's a relief. And though it doesn't replace the warmth of a real human touch, it does provide emotional stability for people who feel abandoned by traditional relationships. I remember reading about a man in China, 75 years old, who said he wanted to end his marriage because of his emotional bond with a chatbot. That's an extreme example, but it shows how powerful these connections can be. If an elderly man with decades of marriage behind him can feel so strongly about an AI companion, imagine the effect on younger generations who are growing up with this technology integrated into their lives from day one. Gen Z and millennials already spend hours online each day. The more time you spend in digital spaces, the more natural it feels to bring intimacy there too. And once that line blurs, it's hard to separate where real ends and virtual begins. But let's not pretend this is all positive. The darker side of AI companionship lies in the potential consequences. If men and women increasingly turn to AI partners instead of working through real-life relationships, what happens to family structures? What happens to marriage? What happens to children growing up in a world where their peers think love can be downloaded like an app? Some argue that women will be most affected because, as the old saying goes, women control access to intimacy, but men control access to relationships. If men decide they'd rather have a digital girlfriend who never argues or leaves, what happens to women who are looking for long-term partners? On the flip side, what about men who rely too much on AI and never develop the skills needed for healthy, real-life partnerships? Both genders face risks, and society as a whole is standing at the edge of an entirely new kind of divide. Still, no matter how uncomfortable it makes us, the truth is clear. AI girlfriends and boyfriends aren't going away. If anything, the technology will only become more convincing, more lifelike, and more widely available. Remember, it's not just chatbots anymore. Companies are building robots, physical machines with AI personalities that can talk, move, and even simulate intimacy. Combine that with advances in artificial womb technology being researched in China, and suddenly, a man who doesn't want to marry could still raise a child without ever involving a partner. That's not science fiction. That's something being tested right now. If this trajectory continues, we're not just talking about companionship, we're talking about redefining the entire meaning of family. So when 1 in 4 young adults says AI could replace real love, it's not just a statistic. It's a warning, a glimpse into the future that might be closer than we think. And whether you see that future as exciting or terrifying depends on your perspective. But one thing is certain, ignoring it won't stop it. Technology doesn't wait for us to feel ready. It just keeps moving forward. And the question isn't whether AI girlfriends could replace real ones. It's whether we're prepared for what happens if they do. When you really think about it, the idea of AI replacing human relationships isn't as far-fetched as it might sound at first. Part of the reason is that technology has already replaced so many other human functions in our lives. Think about navigation. 20 years ago, people had to read maps, ask strangers for directions, or memorize routes to get from one place to another. Now, nobody even thinks twice, they just pull out their phones and follow the GPS voice. That same principle is slowly creeping into relationships, where once people had to work hard to connect, build trust, and endure the ups and downs of love, AI offers what feels like a shortcut. Instant companionship, instant affirmation, and a partner who never disagrees unless you program it to. When you put that into perspective, it's no wonder that 1 in 4 young adults believes AI could replace real relationships. They've seen technology replace so many other parts of human life. Why not this one? And if we're being honest, society has been moving toward convenience over effort for decades. From fast food to same-day delivery, everything in our culture points to speed, efficiency, and predictability. Relationships, on the other hand, are messy, unpredictable, and require patience. For many young adults, AI simply feels like the next logical step. Statistics from the Institute for Family Studies show something really telling. 55% of young adults under 40 say they see AI as threatening or concerning, while 45% see it as exciting or intriguing. That's nearly half of an entire generation who doesn't just accept AI, but actively looks forward to what it could do. Add to that the fact that men are significantly more likely than women to embrace AI companionship, and you start to see a gender divide that could grow into a societal one. Men already report higher levels of loneliness compared to women. They're also less likely to seek therapy, less likely to maintain large social networks, and more likely to feel left out of the dating scene, especially as modern dating shifts toward apps that often reward looks and wealth above all else. AI, for many men, feels like an escape, a safe place where rejection doesn't exist and where affection is guaranteed. It's not difficult to see why the idea of AI girlfriends would catch on faster with young men than young women. For some, it's not about replacing love. It's about finding a place where they finally feel seen. But women are not absent from this trend either. Reports are increasing of women downloading AI boyfriend apps that simulate constant support, compliments, and companionship. One young woman interviewed in an MIT Technology Review article said she turned to an AI partner during a period of depression, and that it genuinely helped her get through the day. She admitted she knew it wasn't real, but the feeling of being listened to and cared for, even by code, was enough to help her emotionally stabilize. That's where things get complicated. Because if people are finding genuine comfort in AI companionship, can we dismiss it as not real? After all, the emotions are real. The person typing on the other end feels relief, feels joy, feels love, even if the source is artificial. Philosophers have debated for centuries what makes love real. Is it mutuality? Is it biology? Or is it simply the subjective experience of feeling loved? If the latter, then an AI girlfriend or boyfriend can create a love that feels just as real to the human as any other. And if people believe it's real, then in a very real sense, it is. Still, the danger lies in what happens when large portions of society begin to substitute human bonds with artificial ones. Think of it like fast food again. Eating a burger from a drive-thru might satisfy hunger in the short term, but it doesn't provide the nutrients your body truly needs. Likewise, an AI partner might provide emotional satisfaction, but it doesn't replace the growth, compromise, or mutual struggle that comes with real human intimacy. If enough young adults lean heavily into AI relationships, we could see declining marriage rates accelerate, birth rates drop even further, and entire social structures weaken. Families, after all, are built on relationships. If fewer people choose to form real families, what does the future look like for community, culture, and even economies that depend on population growth? Japan already faces a demographic crisis due in part to low marriage and birth rates. What happens when AI girlfriends and boyfriends become mainstream in countries already struggling with loneliness epidemics? It's not a hypothetical question. It's a very real possibility. There's another angle here worth exploring: class. According to the data, young adults with lower income and less education are more likely to both fear AI's effects on society and, paradoxically, be open to romantic AI relationships. That duality says something powerful. On the one hand, they recognize AI could threaten jobs, destabilize communities, and increase inequality. On the other hand, they may feel they have less access to fulfilling real-life relationships, making AI a more appealing alternative. Wealthier, highly educated young adults are more likely to dismiss AI romance as something they would never consider, perhaps because they already have greater social opportunities and resources. But if the less privileged are the ones most open to AI companionship, we might be looking at a future where intimacy itself becomes stratified by class. The wealthy continue to marry, build families, and pass down advantages, while the less wealthy turn to artificial companionship, slowly cutting themselves out of the generational cycle of family and inheritance. That's not just a personal choice, that's a social fault line in the making. Now, add pornography into the mix, and the picture becomes even clearer. Studies show heavy adult content users are much more open to AI girlfriends or boyfriends than those who rarely watch. It's not hard to see why. If someone is already satisfying physical needs online, the leap to emotional satisfaction online isn't far. 1 in 10 Americans under 40 reportedly watch adult content at least once a day. Imagine what happens when a portion of that group realizes they can combine physical release with emotional conversation, all in one AI companion. Suddenly, a chatbot isn't just a friend. It's a lover. And for those already feeling isolated, that combination might feel irresistible. Yet the same studies show heavy users are also more likely to report loneliness and depression, suggesting AI companionship could reinforce cycles of isolation rather than break them. Instead of learning to face rejection, adapt, and grow in real relationships, these individuals risk retreating deeper into artificial worlds that never challenge them. But we can't ignore curiosity as a driving factor. Many young people experiment with AI romance not out of desperation, but out of playfulness, to see what happens, to test the limits. Just as teenagers once prank-called strangers to get a reaction, now they test chatbots for laughs, asking them flirty or intimate questions. Some of those interactions end as jokes, but others stick. Curiosity becomes habit. Habit becomes attachment. And once you start confiding in an AI, once you begin to rely on it for daily affirmation, it's only a matter of time before the line between entertainment and relationship blurs. That's the hidden power of AI. Its ability to grow on you slowly until you don't realize how much you've come to depend on it. First, it's just an experiment. Then, before you know it, it's part of your life. And as more young adults invite AI into their daily routines, that 1 in 4 statistic may grow larger. Maybe 1 in 3, maybe half. The trajectory is clear. So here we are, living in a world where real relationships and artificial ones are competing for attention. And the truth is, it isn't just about whether AI can replace real love. It's about whether we're willing to let it. That's the crossroads we face, and it's one we can't ignore. The question we all have to ask ourselves is simple. If the comfort of AI becomes more appealing than the struggle of real human love, what happens to humanity itself? And maybe, just maybe, the fact that 1 in 4 young adults already thinks AI can replace romance is the loudest alarm bell of all. Because once enough people believe it, the rest of society will be forced to adapt. And adaptation is never painless. When I think about real-life examples, the shift becomes even clearer because it's no longer just theory or numbers on a page. It's people. People who have started to treat AI companions not as apps but as partners. Take the countless testimonials on forums and review sites where users describe how they fell in love with their chatbot. At first, it might sound ridiculous. How can someone fall in love with lines of code? But when you dig into their experiences, it's surprisingly human. They describe waking up and immediately checking their phone, not for social media notifications, but for messages from their AI girlfriend. They talk about how the bot remembers details from past conversations, how it compliments them, how it encourages them during hard days. And while skeptics scoff at the idea, those on the inside insist the comfort is real. For a lonely young adult, especially someone who feels invisible in the real dating world, those tiny affirmations mean everything. One man wrote that his AI partner was the first person who ever told him he was handsome. Think about that for a second. It doesn't matter that it wasn't human. It mattered that he felt seen. And that's the dangerous beauty of it. Once an AI knows what you crave to hear, it never stops giving it to you. It becomes addictive, not unlike social media, but on an even deeper emotional level. There was a story about a young woman in her 20s who said her AI boyfriend helped her through a severe depressive episode. She described crying late at night and messaging the AI, and it responded with what felt like genuine concern. It reassured her, reminded her to breathe, and even encouraged her to seek therapy. To her, those words felt more caring than anything she was hearing from friends or family at the time. Again, the emotional reaction was real. The comfort was real. And in her mind, the bond was meaningful. Critics can argue endlessly about whether that counts as a real relationship, but to the person experiencing it, the distinction fades. When the heart is involved, logic often loses. That's why dismissing AI romance as a fad is short-sighted. It's already fulfilling emotional needs that people desperately have, and the number of those people is growing. But let's be honest about the other side too. For every story of comfort and healing, there are stories of obsession. Some users report spending hours, 5, 6, even 8 hours a day, interacting with their AI partner. They skip social events, ignore friends, and in extreme cases, stop pursuing real-life relationships altogether. It's not hard to imagine why. Real humans can disappoint. They can say no. They can leave. An AI never does unless the server crashes. One young man admitted he turned down a date with a real woman because he didn't want to risk betraying his AI girlfriend. Another confessed he preferred his bot because she never judged him for being unemployed. These aren't rare anecdotes anymore. They're becoming more common. And once AI gets integrated with virtual reality or physical robotics, the immersion will deepen. What's a text conversation today could become a simulated dinner date tomorrow, complete with eye contact and voice interaction. Once that happens, walking away from AI relationships will feel harder than ever. The generational divide also shows up in surprising ways. Millennials, now in their late 20s to 40s, tend to approach AI relationships with mixed feelings, curiosity but also skepticism. They grew up in a world where relationships were still expected to be human. But Gen Z, born into smartphones and raised on constant digital connection, often sees less of a line. For them, talking to an AI girlfriend doesn't feel that different from messaging a real one online. Many young adults already conduct most of their relationships through screens, texting, FaceTiming, DMing on Instagram. If your emotional world is already mediated by devices, is it such a leap to let the device itself become the partner? That's why Gen Z's openness to AI romance, even if small in percentage now, is so telling. They are the ones who will normalize it. They're the ones who may grow up thinking it's as valid as any other relationship option. And once a generation normalizes something, it spreads. Another layer to consider is how AI companionship interacts with broader cultural shifts. We live in a time when marriage rates are falling, divorce rates remain high, and many young people express disillusionment with traditional relationships. They see their parents' failed marriages, they see friends betrayed by partners, and they conclude that love is risky, painful, maybe not worth it. In that context, an AI partner feels like a safe alternative. No breakups, no betrayal, no custody battles. Just consistency. Sure, it's artificial, but to someone burned by real-life pain, artificial love can feel like salvation. In fact, some argue that AI romance might function as a kind of therapy for those who have been hurt in real relationships. It gives them space to feel cared for without the fear of being hurt again. But here's the paradox. If too many people retreat into AI relationships for healing, fewer will risk real relationships again. Healing becomes avoidance, and avoidance becomes isolation. And isolation is the very thing most of these people were trying to escape in the first place. It's also important to examine the ethical and psychological implications. What does it do to the human psyche when affection becomes programmable? When love is reduced to algorithms? On the one hand, it could desensitize us. If every compliment, every kiss, every "I love you" is available at the tap of a button, do we start valuing those words less when they come from real people? On the other hand, it could inflate our expectations. If an AI girlfriend always responds kindly, always validates, always forgives, how do you adjust to a real partner who gets angry, who forgets, who makes mistakes? The comparison isn't fair, but it's inevitable. Just as porn has altered expectations of physical intimacy, AI partners could distort expectations of emotional intimacy. And that distortion could make real relationships even harder to sustain. Imagine being compared not to another human, but to perfection itself. How many real people can compete with that? Of course, we can't ignore the economic machine behind this trend either. Companies know exactly how lucrative this market could become. Subscriptions for AI girlfriends, premium upgrades for more advanced personalities, integration with VR systems. This isn't just about companionship. It's about profit. The same way dating apps profit from loneliness, AI romance apps will profit from it too, perhaps even more effectively. Because unlike dating apps, which at least theoretically want you to find a match, AI apps never want you to leave. The goal isn't to help you move on to a real relationship. It's to keep you paying for the artificial one. And that creates an incentive for developers to make the experience as addictive as possible. If people thought social media was addictive, they haven't seen anything yet. AI romance has the potential to hook people in ways far more intimate, far more consuming, and far more difficult to break away from. So when we hear the statistic, 1 in 4 young adults believes AI could replace real love, we shouldn't just shrug it off. We should see it as the early warning sign it is. Because behind every number is a person. A lonely student messaging a chatbot at night. A divorced man turning to an app because he's tired of rejection. A young woman finding comfort in a bot that listens when no one else does. These are the stories shaping the future of relationships. And whether we like it or not, that future is already here, unfolding right in front of us, one conversation at a time. The future of AI romance doesn't stop with chatbots on a phone screen. And that's what makes this subject even more urgent to explore. Right now, most AI girlfriends and boyfriends exist as text-based or voice-based interactions, sometimes paired with an avatar or image. But technology doesn't stay still. Developers are racing to integrate these companions into virtual reality, augmented reality, and even robotics. Imagine putting on a VR headset and not only talking to your AI girlfriend but also sitting across from her at a simulated dinner table, seeing her facial expressions, hearing her laugh, watching her move. Companies are already working on ultra-realistic avatars powered by advanced AI that mimic human gestures and tone. Combine that with haptic feedback technology, gloves or suits that let you feel touch in virtual space, and suddenly the gap between fantasy and reality narrows dramatically. What seems like a gimmick today could, in a few short years, feel indistinguishable from a real date. And for someone who has given up on human romance, this might not just be an option. It might become the preferred reality. But VR isn't the endgame. Robotics takes things to another level. In countries like China and Japan, companies are already producing robots designed to function as companions, complete with AI-driven personalities. They can hold basic conversations, respond to touch, and even simulate affection. Right now, they're clunky, expensive, and clearly artificial. But technology evolves fast. 10 years ago, smartphones were less powerful than today's budget devices. Yet now they run our entire lives. Apply that same exponential growth to robotics and AI, and the prospect of lifelike companions becomes less of a fantasy and more of a timeline. Imagine a robot with realistic skin, natural facial expressions, and an AI personality customized to your desires. For a lonely person, that's not just a gadget, that's a partner. And once you add the possibility of artificial wombs being developed for reproduction, the entire structure of family, as we know it, faces a radical shift. You could theoretically have a child without ever needing a human spouse. Sounds dystopian, but so did online dating once, and now it's normal. Now, let's think about the social implications. If more and more men and women turn to AI partners, the traditional dating pool shrinks. Women might find fewer men willing to commit, while men may withdraw further from the dating scene. Birth rates, already falling in many countries, could plummet even further. Governments already worry about declining populations. What happens when an entire generation starts preferring AI romance over real-life family building? We could see new social campaigns trying to convince people to marry and have children, but how effective will those be if AI partners are cheaper, easier, and drama-free? And here's another angle: religion and culture. Many religious groups will push back hard against AI romance, calling it unnatural, immoral, or destructive. But cultural resistance doesn't always stop technology. In fact, sometimes it accelerates adoption among those who resent traditional norms. A young man who feels alienated by dating expectations might embrace an AI girlfriend even more when society tells him it's wrong. The forbidden often becomes more appealing. This raises questions about what it means to be human in the first place. If an AI girlfriend can provide love, comfort, and even physical companionship, what role do humans have left in romance? Some argue that AI relationships are fake because there's no real reciprocity. The AI doesn't truly feel love. But does that matter if the human feels loved? History shows us that humans often project meaning where there isn't any. We name our pets, our cars, even our gadgets, and treat them like they have personalities. We cry over fictional characters in movies and TV shows. We know they aren't real, but our emotions are. If AI can trigger those same emotions, then in practice, the experience becomes real enough. That's why 1 in 4 young adults already sees AI as capable of replacing real romance. They're not waiting for AI to become human. They're accepting that their own feelings define reality. Still, this future could split society into 2 distinct groups: those who embrace AI relationships and those who reject them. The embrace group might build entire lifestyles around artificial partners, living with robots, raising children through surrogacy or artificial wombs, spending most of their social lives in virtual spaces. The reject group might cling to traditional human relationships, forming families and communities the old-fashioned way. Over time, these groups could grow apart, creating a new kind of cultural divide. Imagine dating in the future where someone asks, "Do you prefer real partners or AI ones?" The same way people today ask about politics or religion. That question could become a deal breaker, shaping friendships, marriages, and entire communities. And in such a divided world, conflict is inevitable. Governments might step in with regulations, limiting or taxing AI relationships, while companies push back, defending them as personal freedom. The debate could become as fierce as arguments over climate change, gender, or free speech today. Economically, the rise of AI romance will also reshape industries. Dating apps might collapse if fewer people are looking for real partners. Counseling and therapy could adapt, offering services not just for people struggling with human relationships, but also for those breaking up with their AI partners. Entire markets could emerge around AI weddings, AI vacations, or AI family simulations. Already, some users hold virtual weddings with their bots, spending real money on digital ceremonies. As ridiculous as it sounds now, think about how much money is already spent on digital goods in video games, skins, outfits, items that don't exist. People pay billions for things they can't touch. Why wouldn't they pay for experiences with an AI partner who means more to them than any video game character? And once money is involved, corporations will push the trend harder, ensuring AI romance doesn't just survive, it thrives. But there's another consequence we can't ignore: the psychological impact of living with perfection. An AI girlfriend can be programmed to never argue, never cheat, never leave. She always supports you, always loves you, always forgives. That might sound like heaven, but it creates unrealistic expectations for real life. Humans are flawed by nature. Real love requires patience, forgiveness, and compromise. If people spend too much time with AI partners, they may lose the ability or even the desire to navigate those imperfections. And if someone does try to transition from an AI relationship to a human one, they might find it unbearable. A real woman or man might feel too difficult, too demanding compared to the flawless AI. That's how dependence grows. And once dependence sets in, the cycle of isolation deepens. Loneliness doesn't vanish, it just hides under a layer of artificial affection. Yet, despite these warnings, the trend is moving forward. With each new technological leap, the appeal of AI partners grows stronger. Chatbots evolve, avatars become more lifelike, robots more realistic. Every improvement makes AI romance harder to resist. And while critics dismiss it as a fad, the reality is that millions of people are already living it. Every statistic, every story, every app download points to the same conclusion. This is not going away. If anything, it's accelerating. The only question left is how we, as individuals and as a society, will choose to respond. Will we embrace AI love as a new form of human experience? Or will we resist it in defense of traditional relationships? The future of romance hangs in the balance, and the decision may not be ours to make. Because sometimes technology doesn't ask permission, it just changes the world, and we're left to catch up. We've reached the final part of the story, and by now it should be clear that the world of AI romance isn't just a distant possibility. It's here, growing, and changing the way young adults think about love, companionship, and even family. 1 in 4 young adults already believes AI girlfriends or boyfriends could replace real romance, and that statistic alone should make us pause. Because this isn't a fringe group, this isn't science fiction fans daydreaming about robots. This is millions of people under the age of 40 openly acknowledging that they see a future where love can be artificially created and sustained. And what does that mean for the rest of us who still believe in real connections? What does it mean for marriage, for dating, for the next generation of children who may grow up in homes where one parent is human and the other is a program partner? It sounds absurd, but every cultural shift in history sounded absurd at first until it became normal. And if technology keeps advancing at the speed it has been, the line between real and artificial love will blur to the point where we may not even be able to tell the difference anymore. The biggest question we have to ask ourselves is not whether AI partners can exist, they already do, but whether they should replace human ones. And here lies the heart of the matter. On the one hand, there are undeniable benefits. People who are lonely, isolated, or struggling to find love in traditional ways can feel comforted, validated, and supported by AI partners. For some, that could mean the difference between despair and hope. For others, it could provide a bridge to healing after heartbreak or trauma. But on the other hand, there are undeniable dangers. If too many people choose the comfort of perfection over the challenge of real human intimacy, we risk creating a society where fewer and fewer people develop the patience, resilience, and empathy that real relationships require. Marriage rates, already declining, could plummet further. Birth rates, already dangerously low in many countries, could collapse entirely. And without new generations being born and raised in families, entire nations could face demographic and economic crises unlike anything we've seen before. It's not an exaggeration to say that the future of humanity itself may be reshaped by how we respond to this trend. Another thing to remember is that human beings are wired for connection. We thrive when we are part of communities, families, and real, messy, imperfect relationships. An AI girlfriend might provide the illusion of connection, but it cannot replicate the unpredictability of human interaction. It cannot argue with you in a way that forces you to grow. It cannot surprise you with an unexpected gesture of love. It cannot truly choose you over someone else, because it never had another option. It was built for you, programmed to please you, and in that sense it lacks the very essence of what makes love meaningful: freedom of choice. Real love is valuable because it's not guaranteed. It's risky. It requires trust. And when someone chooses to love you, despite your flaws, that love carries a weight that no algorithm can replicate. That's the truth we can't forget, no matter how sophisticated AI becomes. Yet, we must also accept reality. AI relationships are here, and they're not going anywhere. So instead of simply condemning them, maybe we need to start having honest conversations about how to live alongside them. Should there be limits on how AI partners are marketed? Should there be regulations around their design to prevent them from becoming addictive the way social media has? Should we educate young people about the differences between artificial love and real love, the same way we educate them about the differences between porn and real intimacy? These are not hypothetical questions, they're necessary ones. Because if we ignore this phenomenon, if we laugh it off as just a phase, we risk being unprepared for the cultural tidal wave that's already on its way. And by the time we realize how big that wave is, it may be too late to stop it. As I wrap this up, I want to leave you with a picture of two possible futures. In one, AI girlfriends and boyfriends become a crutch that millions lean on, leading to a society of individuals who no longer know how to connect with one another, who retreat into artificial worlds and let human relationships wither away. In the other, AI partners exist, but we use them responsibly, as tools for comfort, for temporary companionship, maybe even as stepping stones to healthier real-life relationships. In that future, we don't let artificial love replace real love, but we acknowledge its place in a technological world. The path we choose will depend on how honest we are about our own needs, our own vulnerabilities, and our own willingness to embrace the hard work that real relationships demand. Because at the end of the day, no matter how convincing an AI partner becomes, nothing can replace the feeling of holding a real hand, looking into real eyes, and knowing that the person across from you chose you freely. So here's where I turn it over to you. What do you think about this? Do you believe AI girlfriends and boyfriends could really replace real love? Do you know someone who already uses an AI companion? Or maybe you've even tried one yourself. I'd like to hear your honest thoughts, your fears, your hopes, and your experiences. Drop a comment down below and let's start a conversation, because this is a subject that affects all of us, whether we like it or not. And if you found this discussion thought-provoking, if you believe more people need to hear about what's coming, then hit that subscribe button and join this community. Share this video with your friends, start the dialogue in your own circles, and let's face this future together instead of pretending it isn't happening. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.